I'm Nikki. That was ZZ Top with Sleeping Bag. In this week's show, we've got an interview with Vane, Finnish band Gringos Locos, a Queen's Right competition, and new videos. But before any of that, we've got exclusive interviews with Bruce Dickinson, Ian Gillan, and Tony Iommi, who all got together to do a brilliant version of the Deep Purple classic Smoke on the Water for Rock Aid Armenia. The charity single, album, and video will be out in a couple of weeks. It'll feature tracks by Bon Jovi, Led Zepp, Iron Maiden. So go out and buy it. It's for a great cause, and it's going to be a brilliant record.
I thought it was going to be a shambles, to be honest. And the very idea of putting together Ritchie Blackmore, Tony Iommi, Brian May, Dave Gilmour, Alex Lifeson, etc., etc. I mean, I guess if you're into rock music, it's everyone's dream. But, I mean, my idea of that was an absolute nightmare to start with. And I thought, well, you know, there's going to be all these egos and everyone throwing tantrums everywhere. But it didn't turn out that way at all. It was a very light mood. Everyone got off on it, got into the spirit. And I think that's the one thing that made it credible. The fact that everyone really did put in. And, you know, there's no room for extended solos. I think on some of the other 12-inch and whatever, everyone's going to get a chance to show off a little bit. But basically, it's the mood of the song that's been captured and the spirit of the occasion.
In the first place, I got asked to do it and I turned it down because Ian Gillan wasn't involved. Right? Because they asked me to do it, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it if Ian isn't involved, because it's his song. And so, because there was a lot of sort of stuff with, he just left Deep Purple, and Ritchie Blackmore was going to do it, and he wasn't, and Ian wasn't going to do it. And I said, well, nobody's asked him, so I think that's a bit bad, you know, so I'm not going to do it. So the next thing was Ian phoned me up and said, I am doing it, would you like to do it? So I said, yes, that's fine.
When Ian was with Sabbath, we used to do that anyway. It was the only song we would do of Purple's. I enjoyed playing. I think everybody else enjoyed doing it. It's a classic song, and it's nice for it to be re-released again, you know, with a bit of new gustos with it.
I'd have taken part in whatever charity it was. Having been asked and seeing the way that, as far as I could see, that nobody was using it as a particular ego trip because everybody was involved, I would then have to have a pretty good reason, you know, personal reason for refusing, you know, something like this. Although I have to say, in general, I'm not a great fan of charity records as such, because I tend to feel that a lot of artists on them use them solely as like fairly careerist moves. So if we do things in Iron Maiden for charity, we tend to keep things in a slightly lower profile. I mean, we do things, but I mean, we don't really make a big song and dance about them. But this is one particular occasion when you have to make a song and dance about it to sell the record. So here we are making a song and dance about it.
Well, it's through our office at first, which they were contacted and asked if I'd want to do it, and I said, great, I'd love to do it, and particularly with all my friends in it, it's great. It's something that I think needs to be done more often as far as musically people like ourselves are spinning about, to be able to come together and play. And I think the cause is a brilliant cause.
I had quite a hand in getting Bruce Dickinson involved and Paul Rogers, and Brian Adams was actually walking around the studio and I said, oi, you, and got him in to sing on the harmony. It was just, I mean, I know Bruce, and I didn't actually get Paul involved, but I was talking to him. He was a bit reluctant, I think, to start with, but then gradually it came together, you know. So, you know, I mean, if I'd had the choice, I would have chosen exactly the same people.
I came down one Sunday afternoon, and the first guy I met when I was pulling in was Brian Adams, who was just leaving, and he'd come down just to look at the studio. I mean, he hadn't come down to record anything, and he ended up on the record. And I know Brian, he's great. He's like very, very normal, relaxed sort of person, and he's got absolutely no, you know, ego garbage flying around him at all. And so we had a quick chat, and I wandered in, and it was just a great vibe in there. I mean, there was Ian and Jeff, and Keith turned up a bit later on, and a few sort of journalists, sort of like drunk at the back. But it was all people who I knew, and so there weren't, you know, there wasn't any problems there at all. You know, it's great.
I think the test of time has shown that the song as a vehicle for guitar players particularly hasn't changed at all.
Fortunately, I think I've got enough of my own personality in terms of my own singing style and what have you, to be able to carry it off. I mean, I got the second verse, so, you know, off I toddled on the second verse and tried to make it a good one, you know. But you try and adapt to the song. I mean, I think when you see the way that the singers are singing the song, I mean, there's, you know, Ian obviously has been singing it for ages. With myself and Paul, we both tried to make it obvious that we were singing that particular verse, but nevertheless we tried to stay fairly on the straight and narrow in terms of, you know, interpretation, and, you know, we resisted the temptation to try and do, you know, vocal backflips and show off, basically, you know.
I'm involved in a project now which is my first ever solo album. In fact, I've just taken the time off to drive down from Liverpool to do this thing today. And we're in the studio for about 5 or 6 weeks. We've done all the pre-production, songs are written, got a great producer, great musicians, and it's out in March next year. Haven't got a title for it yet. And we're off to Russia in March for 30 shows across the country, Odessa, Kiev, Leningrad, Moscow. Looking forward to it very much. And then we do a British tour, and then into Europe until mid-June. But that's my promotion out of the way. We don't want to talk about that.